It's a pleasure contacting someone from Germany, one of my favorite countries. I have too many favorite countries, but honestly, my heart is also with the German people. And in Germany, I was able to travel there, and I loved the experience of going to Frankfurt, to the book fair. We were able to travel to different places also and sightseeing. So we had a great experience, and thank you. Thank you so much, Ronald.
Well, thanks for having me.
So we have Ronald Shild today with us, and this video is going to be posted in our YouTube of Mercado Libros. For those of you that are not able to enter it right now, in some parts of the world it's too early still. So this is the best time for both of us connecting from Brazil and Germany. And we have a couple of questions. So my first question, Ronald, this was not in the list that I sent you, but I'm sure you can help me understanding this. I just read a message right now from the publishing market talking about the book fair in Frankfurt. They are thinking they already announced it, they already said it officially, and the message that I got this morning, let me see if I can get it right here so I can exactly tell you word by word. So basically, I think that the big question is, will it happen? And will it happen to many countries? The possibility to travel. That's the big question, because according to the article, let's see, I'm gonna find it. But you can tell me your opinion.
Yeah, I sure can. I'm happy to, because you probably know that I'm CEO of MBB, which is a infrastructure provider, digital infrastructure provider for Germany and many other countries. We're active in Brazil as well with MetaBooks. But at the same time, we're a group of companies, and to that group, Frankfurt Book Fair belongs as well. So I'm in the board of Frankfurt Book Fair as well. And I can tell you it will happen, and we are really happy it will happen, because the book world, the book industry needs Frankfurt Book Fair. But it will be a special edition. And that's not really, but for us as well, it's a big opportunity. And it will be a completely different format that compared to previous years. It will be a mix of a physical presence, and the physical presence will be much smaller than last year's, because we know there, or we assume, we don't know, but we assume there will be travel restrictions for Latin America, probably, for North America, for Asia. So it will be, for many people who usually come and love coming to Frankfurt Book Fair, will be very difficult to get there. And we can't really expect people to come to Germany, go to quarantine for 2 weeks, go to Frankfurt Book Fair, go back in quarantine again.
Yes.
So that's why we're combining the smaller physical presence with digital services, and as well more events in the city of Frankfurt. And the digital services will be, or the virtual book fair will be a mix of consumer reader events. So we will stream a lot of author readings, interviews, events, working with the main TV stations to get there. And the second part will be a business-to-business activity, and that combines rights trading of licenses, matchmaking, so that even if you stay in Brazil, you can still meet publishers from around the world. There will be a scheduling tool. We will integrate Zoom, so it will be we're trying to mirror the usual fair activity in the virtual space.
Well, I'll tell you something. My heart goes with all of you, because we know that when it comes to put something together and do it right, do it perfect, is Germany. And seriously, I'm not giving you stars. I'm just talking the truth. But we know it's a challenge. And of course, some of the things that you're going to implement, you all are going to implement what's happening in the Bologna virtual book fair, because they actually, they were able in a short period of time put together interviews, wonderful webinars. They were able to offer the chat rooms for licensing and foreign rights distribution, and everything was online, of course. They were able to have their exhibit, their famous exhibit of illustrators around the world. So I guess that because the book fair in Germany is considering in October, right? It's gonna, because that's the date, right? Middle of October. It will give you guys much more time to start working on all that. And one of the things that I read is that the presential part of the book fair, the physical part of the book fair, you guys are taking all the measurements possible to have distances between the booths, minimum number of people walking in the actually book fair. So I mean, it's going to be an experience, and it's going to be a learning also experience for all of you, and the people that will be able to travel and come. So I'm excited. I'm really excited to see the return. How it actually how it's going to happen. So one of the things that I heard this morning, okay, and that's why we started talking about this. I found the article, and the first thing I read this morning was Simon and Schuster and Macmillan, which are American publishers, they will not travel to Frankfurt. And in another article that has been posted officially too, they said that, and that was my question, because that was coming from a source, that they said, well, will it really happen? Because if we don't have Macmillan, HarperCollins, Penguin Reader House, will that make sense to happen? And I was surprised reading to that, because, there's so many publishers, companies, that the world is not going to stop if some cannot come, so the question mark was like, I think it's not fair.
No, it's not. No, and it's not actually 100% true. Of course, the North American publishers probably won't be able to travel, so it's a safe guess to say that they will not attend. But that's why we're building all the digital services, and we've been building them over the last couple of years. So we have a platform for rights trading, which is currently called IPR. We have matchmaking, and that will still happen. It will happen online. And all the big publishing houses whom we're in close contact with, they're very supportive of the idea to have a virtual fair or a virtual component of the fair. And they're actively working with us to build something. And that is really promising.
Great. That's fantastic. So let's dip into the questions, because this was a very curious question I had to start the conversation. So do you see children's pictures books lending themselves to an ebook format in the German-speaking world? Because it's a different culture, right, by its own.
Yeah. At this time, not really. So generally speaking, we've had, ebooks have been around for 10 years now, something over 10 years, and they have very little market share. There are different reasons for that. So it's for ebooks, generally speaking, so for all ages and in all topics. And the reason is that we have the fixed book price in Germany, and there was never a big differential between the price for physical book and an ebook. That was different in the States, for example, where ebook have a larger market share, although that's flattening as well, where you had a huge discount when you bought an ebook compared to a physical book. That was never the case in Germany. And in neither was it the case in most other continental countries. The second thing is that we have a huge network of booksellers. So we have something like 6,000 booksellers in Germany, and that's a
wow.
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 And that's a relatively small country, right?
Wow. That's wonderful.
So you never have to walk. You usually can walk to your next bookstore, right? And so again, that's different to the States, for example. When you travel to the States, if you don't go to the big cities, you have regions there's not a single bookshop. So you have to order them online. It takes like 2, 3, 4 days until the books arrive, whereas you can download an ebook immediately. But you have the similar experience with the bookshops here with physical books, because you just go down the road, go to your bookshop, buy the book, and go back. And even if it's not there, they can usually get it overnight. So the logistics work pretty nicely as well. So ebooks in general have a market share of more or less 5%. And for children books and illustrated books, it's much less.
Wow. Wow, 5%. That is incredible. That's so low. The rate is amazing. And there's a lot, what I observed in my trip is that there's a lot of mom and pop businesses, meaning not big chains. They are unbelievable well equipped, because they have a variety and a very good selection of books. They actually have a lot of treasures in those little tiny bookstores. So my other question is, what are some of the future trends you see influencing children's books going forward? The style, the format, the presentation, the content. You guys have more creativity and you guys are not set up in a standard form. Am I correct of what I perceived?
Yeah, no, that's correct. And you really have to differentiate between children books, so illustrated books or early reading ages, and young adults or teenagers, so reading age 10, 12, and beyond. There is a lot of variety for the younger readers, but it's a very national or language-based thing. So you see very, very few books from English authors or other foreign authors. They're being translated in that age group. So, for example, you probably know Dr. Seuss,
yes,
the US author, that hardly exists in Germany.
It does? I didn't hear you. It does or it doesn't?
It does not. It does not.
It's not available.
Few books have been translated, but very few, and I just checked online, most of them are not available. And I love Dr. Seuss. I have a huge collection, and I actually read that to my children when they were young, but it doesn't exist because it's mainly the parents who are the sole decision makers when it comes to those books. It's more culturally centered in the German language area. And I think it goes both ways. If you look at a typical German illustrated book, I'm not sure if it could be sold in the US or Brazil or China, and it goes the other way around. That's the reason why Dr. Seuss never took off in Germany, because it's a different style. I'm not a cultural anthropologist, but I would think that culture matters more, at least for illustrated books.
Definitely.
Like, I can show you an example.
Yes.
I share my screen.
Yes.
The book I want to show you is a wonderful book. It's one of my famous books, illustrated books, and it's from an Indian publisher, Para Books. Okay. And it's called The Nightlife of Trees. It's a wonderful book. It's like crafty paper. It's printed on black. Paper is handmade. Wonderful illustrations, and I really love it. But it's in a style that wouldn't sell in Germany. I'm pretty sure it wouldn't sell. And on the other hand, the second link I'm going to share
Yes.
is a book that won the German competition for the most beautiful books. And it's a book about forests as well, but that book is completely different to the first book, although the topic is the same. So it appeals to a German or German language audience, where the Indian book does not. It doesn't mean that's a different quality, or it just means that the younger the reader is, I believe, the more the book has to target it to cultural environment.
Is that the one we're talking about? Can you see my screen?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I figured out that maybe I can pull out the link. So we're on the same page here. I got curious when you said a book from India. So yeah, and you see how many different covers are there? Is this a collection or is just different cover books?
I didn't know it was a collection, but it looks like it.
Yeah.
I only got one of those.
Yeah, it looks, and just for our audience to see these, that they can always look later on if they want to listen a little bit. There's actually some pages that are open that invite you to see the book, and there is I believe there's even a storytelling that actually you can listen. So we'll let you later on your own time listen to the YouTube. It's actually on here, which is great, that's fantastic. I'm gonna listen to it later. You see where it says here, the Night Lives of Trees, the Tara books, and YouTube, and you can actually listen to the story. It's right here. So that's cool. So, and what was the other book, Ronald?
It's well translated would be the Voyage to the Center of the Forest. So it's well, you probably wouldn't find. I can send you the link and you can show it.
So one of the things that comes to my mind is, as a publisher, I always see if I want to get into buying foreign books. I have not buy any foreign books yet. We mostly do it in-house. And they are, when I said in-house, meaning we hired artists from different parts of the world to marry them, to say it like that way, with the best author-illustrator combination. So then the book becomes beautiful and it reads in two different ways, the text and the illustration. But saying that, when it comes to foreign rights, I believe that there's a lot of beautiful books, but it would be difficult to sell it in Brazil because the experience, cultural experience, goes above and beyond our reality, and people don't know about, their food, their costumes, they haven't traveled, so the religion, their daily, activities. So that's tricky, and I agree with you. Perhaps Dr. Seuss is very far and beyond from the parents to understand it.
Exactly. Yeah. And if we're talking design, typography, it's usually we have a tendency here to have a in terms of design is more reduced, so fewer colors, typography is different, and even content-wise, if you're looking at a book about forests, let's stick to that example. We have different plants to start with. We have different animals in the forest. So a Brazilian kid wouldn't even recognize what an oak tree is, maybe, or a bear, or what have you. So that makes it more difficult to
acquire it. I think that a good advice or suggestion is to invite schools, because I'm a teacher and I always think as a teacher as well, and invite the Brazilian schools. They can actually buy foreign books when if they have the means of traveling, and bring that. You can buy 1, 2, books, and that's the way that you start showing the kids another culture. But in terms as a business, from the editorial point of view, it is difficult to to make those decisions. It's all about, you have to be real, right? And you have to, it's about money, it's about cost and benefit, right? And not all the books, but if you want to sustain a business, you have to think like that. So my other question is, with the pandemic making homeschooling and online learning more acceptable, how do you see this impacting the market in Germany?
Okay. Can I go back to your previous question?
Yes.
Just for 1 second. The experience we have with the older readers, let's say, reading age 10, 12 and over, that's completely different. Because that's becoming more and more a transnational or international business. So the best-selling books in Germany, I don't have all the exact numbers, but we see Jeff Kinney, Diary of a Wimpy Kid, a lot. Susan Collins' Hunger Games was a huge success.
Really? Hunger Games? Really? Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Well, that's more for the older readers, but
yeah, that's Hollywood, right? Hollywood.
But even before it was a movie, it was a big hit. Or Warrior Cats by Aaron Hunter, or Stephanie Meyer, Twilight. And these are huge international hits. It's a complete different picture of the market. Whereas below 10, you have like almost exclusively German authors. Above 10, you have probably half of the best-selling books are international bestsellers.
And out of curiosity, since you covered very well all these ages and different audiences, on the adult category, do you have more like a variety of international authors?
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah. So let's go back now to the previous question then. Online and homeschooling. How is perceived the homeschooling in Germany? Does it happen, or it's not a big market?
Well, as a parent, I can tell you, I don't call it homeschooling. I call it hell schooling.
Gosh.
Well, by law, it's homeschooling is not an option. You can't just say I want to school my kid at home. That's not possible. You have to send it to school. So when we went into lockdown mid-March this year, we had to switch very quickly, and it really depends on the school. I think during the pandemic, all the parents are of course in favor of homeschooling. And even some of the kids like it as much as they like physical schooling. But Germany as a country was not prepared for homeschooling. It starts with the technical equipment.
Yes.
I think there's no school, at least I know of, there might be some private schools, but the public schools, which are prevalent in Germany, they have the equipment, they have no Wi-Fi, they have no iPads for the kids. It's all very limited. And the teachers are not educated in homeschooling or remote schooling. So what I see is that my kids get sent presentations of 50 megabyte, far too big to download with a slow internet connection. Some teachers send PDFs that have to be printed out, and so it's a steep learning curve. Let's put it that way at the moment.
Basically, what you're saying is not just homework for the child, but it's homework for the parent. Extra things to do for the parent, right? As it is, we all have a lot of things to do. But the thing is that to clarify something, let's use the term legal. Is it legal or not, homeschooling in Germany? It's not. Okay, so then we can understand more deeply the reason. The reason why I asked you that is because I'm a mom and my child is a product of homeschooling, but actually just from, to be honest with you, from 4 years old to 6 years old. Okay, that's the age, 4 to 6. And I loved it. I cannot deny it that but I have a background. I know how to do it. I prepared myself because it's a whole entire content that is different and it's provided in a different way. But saying that in Brazil, it was not legal, and now they apparently have made it legal. There's groups, but the percentage is not that big. And when you ask parents, they say the same thing you just started the conversation. It's not homeschooling, it's health schooling. So I empathize with you. but the thing is, saying all this, Ronald, you did say that some kids actually liked it. Yeah, that's nice to hear it, because, here I think kids got frustrated and, some liked it, and nobody was prepared for that system. And so will that have any impact for the market?
No, well, there have been attempts in the past to digitize schools. So we have the digital whiteboards, and all the educational publishers are investing in digital technology. So that's, first of all, that's digitizing their printed content to fit on the whiteboards. They're investing in platforms where teachers can interact with children and parents, where you can have assignments, and you can do the assignments online, hand in the assignments. That has been around for a couple of years now. It's never been a big success because our education system is very federal. So the 16 states of Germany take their own decisions. They tell the schools what materials to use, what topics to cover, and there is no central administration management of education for historical reasons. But so it's very, and that's a barrier to innovation. You can't just, the central government can't just say, oh, we go that way with our digital initiatives. So all the 16 different states have to agree, and that's usually quite a long, winding road. But I think it's going to kickstart digitalization of school materials, because we don't know when we can go back to schools yet. Well, the schools have started to reopen. We're going out of lockdown, but it's just rudimentary. So the kids go to school like a day or two per week for 4 hours, and that's it. And the rest is homeschooling. And I think this pandemic shows all the decision makers how important it is to have a digital backup.
Definitely. Yeah, as a resource, just more like a resource, right, than anything else. Exactly. We saw a lot of different countries, especially in North America and South America, if I'm talking about continents, that because I don't have too much exposure of Asia that much, and a little degree in Europe or Australia. But the point is that there's a lot of PDFs flowing around the internet, right? Too many PDFs in my opinion. I think that in the beginning, a lot of publishers, were like shocked, surprised, and they didn't know what to do. And they started giving, away the PDFs and opening, the possibility, because we didn't have access to the books. The bookstores were closed. They just opened here in Brazil a drive-through, which is an amazing concept they came up, where the shopping mall is closed because we're still in quarantine here. And you can order something, drive through the parking place, pick it up, and just keep moving, right? But just happened like 2-3 days ago. And you can still order books online. I mean, we can still purchase books here in Brazil online. It is available. But a lot of PDFs were flowing around. And I think that that's because, again, we didn't have a plan B. And we're going to probably see the majority being removed So, they can generate sales, and a certain degree, some will stay on the cloud for my reason, right? So, will there be many mergers, acquisitions, post-pandemic between publishers to avoid going out of business?
I don't think so. So we're tracking the numbers on a weekly basis, and there was, well, the lockdown, our lockdown ended, or the shops opened end of April. They closed mid-March and they opened again on end of April, so we had a roughly 6-week lockdown. And if you look at the numbers from January to end of lockdown, so end of April, they were down, overall sales were down 14% compared to last year. But if you look at the period from January to May, so end of last month, where the shops were open for the whole month, it's only minus 12%. So we're closing the gap. So we already improved our situation by 2% compared to last year. And that gap is going to close over time during the rest of the year, because people don't stop buying books. In actual fact, the largest part of the drop in sales is related to travel guides, because nobody can travel, so nobody buys travel guides. And funnily enough, children books during lockdown lost 3%, not more, in sales.
In the beginning, just in the beginning, right?
Yeah, exactly. And now if you compare like January to end of May this year to last year, sales of children books are even flat.
Yeah.
So that's a good sign. That's a really good.
Yeah, and the question mark is, we saw that in a lot of countries. Definitely throughout the world, there was a spike on sales in the internet, which is one of the, economically talking, is one of the nicest things that we saw, that huge spike. But the question is, will that spike continue, or will, just stay stable, going down? What it will happen when you open the bookstores? Will people will continue buying books?
They do. I mean, of course, if you compare bookshops during a lockdown to overall sales, bookshops lost more sales than the total market, but they're closing the gap quicker than the rest of the market.
Okay, well, I hope it happens that in Brazil. I don't have no idea.
Yeah. So and there's a cultural shift as well in the population. During the pandemic, many consumers have taken to buy locally much more. I mean, many ordered online, of course, everyone does, but many as a countermeasure, if you like, they stuck to their local fruit and vegetable stores, and now they're going back to the local bookstores. And booksellers have been very inventive. So they set up pickup places for books. You could order books online, and the booksellers set up pickup places, for example, in pharmacies or supermarkets, which were open at the time. And there's a huge level of commitment to local trade. So that's a good sign.
Yeah, I heard that. I heard that you guys were very creative, trying to find other, venues of how to sell. Who would have thought in pharmacies, in bakeries, and they were able to help and understand that there was a need, right? So that was really nice. That's another beautiful thing that brought all this, chaos. But, I do have to ask you, Ronald, can you give us a tip, an idea of how to increase readers in Brazil? If you have read and know this market, can you give us a formula? It's a $1 million question. €1 million.
Oh, that's that would be the holy grail. No, I think honestly, I think it's a mix of different things. So first of all, there is the literacy. So the better people are educated, the more they tend to read books as well, and that grows over time, and usually grows with the economy. So a strong economy is always beneficial to reading as well. There is the role of the parents is really important. There was a study a couple of years ago that there is a correlation between the size of the bookshelves in a family home and the willingness of kids to read. So the parents are an important example for their kids. So if you as a parent, if you read to your kids, if you engage your kids in reading, the chance that they're going to buy books later is much higher. And then the other example is to the contrary, that we saw that when in different countries, we observed that when a large book chain closes, so the physical presence of books decreases, it's not that readers or buyers, consumers go elsewhere to buy books, then usually the number of books sold decreases as well. So it's an indication that the more outlets for books you have, be it libraries or bookshops or places where you can swap books. I mean, we have all these boxes now where you put in your used books and you can take them for free and ask to put in your own books. And usually booksellers are very cautious about these measures because they say, well, if someone takes a book from this free stall, this consumer is not going to come to my shop and buy new books. But the opposite is true. So the higher the physical presence of books is, the higher of sales of books are as well.
Yeah, you said just something so clever, so clever. I think that people have to shift their perception and their vision, and they have to think in the benefits, not in the negatives. Oh, if I do this, I would not sell, or I won't attract the client. I think it's more like a Coca-Cola brand that when you go to the movies, they just keep subliminal showing you the Coke. Exactly. And you think, oh, I'm thirsty, let me go. And you don't get Sprite, you don't get, whatever other, soda exists, but you go and you get Coca-Cola, right? So I think that we have to do that. I think that maybe if we start, someone said to me, TV ads, radio ads, magazine ads, sponsoring, books, the message comes to you that what you see is, I need to get a book. Maybe we just came up here with something cool, so thank you. That's great.
Maybe some purely anecdotal evidence. We couple of years ago we did a promotion on World Book Day, which I think is end of April, if I'm not mistaken. And so the largest German publishers gave away books for free. So you could do an event wherever you liked. You could order books. It's like 16 different books. They were printed for free. They were sponsoring by German Post Office or something, and you could give them away. So I teamed up with the mayor of the city where I live, and we did a reading from these books and a wine tasting and a little event. And at the end, we gave our books away for free. 2 or 3 weeks later, one of the ladies who was there came to me and said, Ronald, you know what? I hadn't read a book for years. And now that you've given me that free book, I started reading again. And I think that's the mechanics behind it. The more you familiarize people with reading, the more they will read.
Yeah, it makes totally sense, right? Sometimes we get trapped with a lot of other things the technology with the Facebook, Instagram, all that stuff, checking emails, WhatsApp, we forget, right, to feed they said the book feeds the soul and the mind, right? So we have to keep feeding. And reading is a muscle. The more you read, the more,
Exactly.
Forget, I hope. and the more vision you have of the world, because you cannot read only one thing. You have to read a lot of things from different sources, because that is important. That's called globalization, I guess, global mind. But so coming to another question is, do most German publishers print their books in Germany, or do they subcontract printing to East Central Europe or China?
That's a tricky question. I'm not 100% sure about that, because I'm not involved in the production process of books.
Okay.
I know there are a couple of big printers in Germany, and that publishers usually prefer printing in Germany or Austria, Switzerland, neighboring countries. There's some big printing plants in Eastern Europe as well, but they usually don't print in China or East Asia, usually for questions of time and quality control.
Right,
it's not that quality is lower, but quality control is more difficult, and it takes weeks or months for the books to arrive. So that usually doesn't fit in their production process. If you compare German books to books from other countries, you will see that there is more attention to paper, quality of the paper, how a book unfolds, and typography. So they're always in publishing house. There's always a production manager who is it's profession on its own, and they're very proud of what they're doing. And it's a bit counterintuitive to, if you spend a lot of effort with your books, to give it away to a faraway printing house with no quality control.
Yeah, it does make sense. It definitely makes sense. So just out of curiosity, and I'm not sure if you can answer this question, it just came on my mind. Germany, the German publishers, they do not depend of government solicitation, right? Does that exist in Germany, such as government solicitation for books, or that is something that it doesn't even exist?
No, it doesn't exist. It's more prevalent in France. There's more subsidies, more state aid, but in Germany, that what we get from the state is more the framework. So we get the fixed book price, which is very important for publishers and for booksellers. We have a reduced value-added tax, so it's usually 19%, and for books and groceries as well, it's 7%. So it's not just books, but books are considered essential products. But there is the odd competition or award for the best bookshops or the best publishers, but there are no real subsidies.
So, given the current availability of low-cost digital tools, how is the trend to self-publish evolving with authors and illustrators of children's books? Here is becoming more and more stronger to see independent authors publishing their own books. How is the market in Germany?
I wouldn't say it's exploding, but it's growing very, very rapidly.
Okay.
You have huge self-publishing platforms where you just upload your manuscript and typeset it if you like, and they either sell it online or you can have it printed as well. We have a good print-on-demand logistics system. So one of the largest distributors in Germany, they set up a company called Books on Demand, for example, and you just send your book and they print it overnight and send it next morning. It's in the bookshop, right?
Really? Next morning in the bookshop? Physically?
In order quantity of work.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
So let me ask you another question then. With saying that, how is the quality? Have you read couple of books that have been printed by an independent author. Is it out? Does it stand by itself, or the quality is compromised? Quality meaning of not the book, but the content, the actual text of the author.
Oh, that's
a tricky question.
That's a really tricky question, because it's so hard to make a general statement. Now, it happens that we are organizing the German Self-Publishing Prize for the best self-published book. So I happen to be on the jury, so I read some 20, 30 self-published books every year. So we have a selection process for a long list, and I would say it's a mix, as always. Get everything.
What I loved is that you actually said something so wise. By doing that, you guys help to maintain the quality, because that independent author is going to want to get that prize and be known, and then be published by a strong, publishing house. I think that's really the key here, because it's dangerous to just print anything. Oh, I thought about the story yesterday, and I'm going to put it in there, and I'm going to sell it, but it's not about that. It's about to be conscious also of what we're sharing, what are we writing, right? And for whom, which is our audience. So then the level of the quality help us to, for a higher education, and not just, here I see a lot of books that are not relevant. And I can say it because I can see it. And I'm saying, why do you even waste the paper and the trees, the tree that is standing on the soil for just printing for the sake of printing? So we have to build consciousness about it. So maybe a reward is a cool thing to do. That's great. So the other thing is, how are the distribution channels changing in Middle Europe, in Europe, and especially giving Amazon's participation in the market?
Well, Amazon doesn't really play a role in distribution.
Yes.
So they are a system of their own, but the rest of the market it's different in most countries. So in Germany, you have a combination of distributors and wholesalers, and sometimes they mix the two systems. We don't have a system of consignment in Germany, I have to say.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah, publishers, most of the Brazilian publishers I talk to are not really happy with that.
No, of course, it's the dream to come true. Yeah, but I think that the key is that you guys can afford to don't have that term of consignment, because we talked earlier about the market is a market of readers. It shows by sales, by statistics. So it's a less risk proposition for anyone to say, I love books, I'm going to open a bookstore, and if I buy these books, will I have people coming to the bookstore? Will I have, enough sales to cover the lease of the place, the advertising? So I think that's the huge difference, right? We're in deep waters, and you guys are navigating in ocean blue and sky. So it makes a big difference.
No, we do have returns, right? So as a bookseller, you're allowed to return, but the publisher is usually setting the terms. So you can either return a certain percentage of the books you bought, or you can return within a certain period of time, or it's by individual request. So the publisher has a high level of control over returns.
That's good. That's a good thing. I remember just as something to share. I was in a little bookstore in Frankfurt, and then it was mainly a lot of literacy, but for adults, very few for children. But she had a very nice selection of books. And of course, all were in German, so I couldn't buy anything. And she had lovely, lovely books. And she even had a launch of a book, and an author was going to be the next day there. And and then I asked her, just out of curiosity, do you own all this inventory, or do you consign? And she's looking at me like this, like so strange, like, what is this girl, saying to me? Obviously, she's foreigner. She said very proudly, very, very proudly, this is all owned. I buy every single book in the store. And, it's really amazing, and it's phenomenal. Did the purchasing and foreign rights, did they have an impact? And that's the question.
Foreign rights, yes and no. I mean, so publishers are more reluctant to buy foreign rights, and many of the new releases are being postponed. And selling rights abroad is not that big a thing in Germany. Only a small percentage of sales for German publishers. So for children books, German children books are quite popular in China, for example. So there's some trade going on, but it's not the biggest business. It's like can't give you the exact percentage, but I would say that there are many more rights being bought than sold.
Yeah, and the other question is, how do you see social media impacting the demand for children's books as more kids favor social media versus reading? Does that is true in Germany or no?
Yeah, it is. I mean, you see the kids with their smartphones all over the place. But and we did the statistics regarding readers. So what percentage of the population still reads and who doesn't read anymore? And we saw that it's the young adults who read much less. So we lost a lot of buyers of books in the age group between, I think, was 25 and 39. But we saw that for children of all ages, reading habits haven't really changed, or habits of reading books, I have to say. Of course, they're doing all the social media, they're doing all the internet stuff and video games and the rest of it, but it doesn't seem to be a big change.
Okay. One of the things, I'm sure you're aware of this because just was announced a week ago. What is the name of this famous writer? The one of Harry Potter.
Yeah, Rowling.
She announced her new book. And the format that was presented, which you're probably aware by now, is she is sharing the chapters, 1 or 2 chapters at a time. She did not put it in a format to sell an ebook. It's actually the PDF that you open and you read the chapter, and then very clever. I have to really admire that thought, whoever came with that thought, if it was she actually who came up with that she's inviting the reader to read online, because we know that there's, that competition of gaming and reading. But the way that she attracted this, it was by illustrating the book, by inviting the children to illustrate the book. And I thought that was so clever, because that is going to give us a statistic later to see how many kids they were actually getting there. Because A, they like Harry Potter, 2, because they love to illustrate, or 3, because they like to read. So a combination of all factors. And it's going to be very interesting because it never has been that concept being proved. And now this is a test, right?
Exactly.
A test of concept. So basically, that's all the questions I have. I have just one curiosity about audiobooks. And that comes in my mind because when I was in Frankfurt, that was 4 years ago, just so you know. And I saw 4 years ago the audiobooks, and I saw it, and I felt it, and I knew it was strong in Europe. it just is coming just in Brazil, you know, in a very slow way. It's not really coming in boom, you know, it's just really coming slowly. Do you think it will work, or is cultural aspect as well?
I think that's going to be a global phenomenon. We see the same in the States, we see it in Germany, in the rest of Europe. If you look at the development of audiobook sales, they were pretty flat, up to the point where you could either listen to them. So sales of audiobooks were flat for as long as they came in CDs. But once you could download them on your iPhone, sales really took off. And now that most audiobooks are on streaming services like Spotify or Apple Music and so forth, it's really exploding.
It is?
Yeah. And I think it's, you can basically, it's the same discussion we had before, you creating touch points for books. So before it was tricky to listen to an audiobook in your car, you had to take the CD and change the CD. And now you just switch on your smartphone and start listening. Or if you're on a subway, you can continue a book that you've been reading at home. And because everyone has a streaming service for music anyway, and there's audiobooks on there, you make them more discoverable and easier to find, easier to listen to. And the second point is, there are many people who are not good readers, like in a technical sense of the way. Either have problems with literacy or just don't like reading, it's too exhausting. And audiobooks give them a possibility to enjoy books, which is good as well.
You know, so, I was going to make a joke with my husband the other day, because I told him, you know, honestly, I have not listened to audiobooks. I used to listen a lot to audiobooks when I was teaching, because they had the cassettes. This is a long time ago, and I would put cassettes for my students to listen. The read aloud book, and but as an adult, I have not listened to a book. And I told him, just like people don't know how to read, I sometimes don't know how to listen. So I told him, maybe I'll train myself how to listen by listening book, because it does has to have the skills also to listen rather than to read and highlight something that you like, right? And that's the part that I think that I'm missing, and that's why I haven't get into audiobooks. But do you actually purchase audiobooks? Do you like it as a consumer?
All the time.
Really?
I don't know how many books I read a year, like 40, 50, I would say. But 10 of those, probably more than that, are audiobooks. Because I drive a lot and I listen to audiobooks in my car most of the time.
No, well, I'm going to have to become an audiobook reader. But anyway, Ronald, it has been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your honesty and for sharing with us and educating us with the knowledge that you have about the editorial business. Thank you.
Well, it's been a real pleasure. Thanks for having me.
You take care, and we'll keep in touch.
Stay safe.
Have a wonderful book fair in Frankfurt. All the best.
We will. We will. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.